Hello, hello, and welcome to the second half of season 5. I can't believe that we're already halfway through the year. My name is Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can lead a lit up life. And with that, I want to again welcome you. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello there. Before we get started with this week's episode, I wanted to pop in here just really quickly and offer up to you 2 different ways that you can work with me. I have private clients that I work with throughout the year to help them quantum leap their business, identify what they want their life to look like so that the business becomes a conduit to that versus running their life. And then the second one is a women's mastermind. This is the second one to kick off, and I'm so excited to start this one in 2024. And I believe the retreat is going to be potentially in Belize, but keep an eye out for it. But this is where we get together, again, quantum leap your business, but it's with a group of other really high vibrational, successful business women that want to level up, want to continue to progress in their achievements and in their business. So with that, click away on the website and check out those exciting events. I'd love to either see you as a private client or in the 2024 Women's Mastermind. Hello, hello. This is Debbie Heiser back with you with another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am here today with Taresa Scott, and I am excited. I met Taresa through a friend. I can't even remember who it was, whether it was Heidi. I think it was Heidi, wasn't it? Yeah. Heidi and Aaron and I are the 3 that kind of like send people to ourselves. So I was trying to remember, but, and Taresa and I got on the phone and we just hit it off and we started having this conversation. I'm like, I need to have you on my podcast, because Taresa is a dynamo. She is the leader of a business, the owner of a business. I'm going to let her introduce that and what she does to serve in the world. And we're going to take off and have this conversation about what it means to be a business owner and how you're leading your life. So Taresa, introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. So my name is Taresa Scott. I am the founder of Bleuprint. It is an education technology company. We focus on all things e-learning, instructional design, and learning management systems. So what we do, high-level simplified version, is we support organizations to onboard, upskill, and reskill their employees and their workforce to build better teams, stronger organizations, and really promote internal mobility so people stay for the long haul.
Yeah, which is so important right now, right, Taresa? Because I was just having this conversation actually with a restaurant owner yesterday, who sold his restaurant, and thinking about what was next. And this idea of retaining employees right now is really important because there is a lot of fear happening right now. And there's some bigger organizations that are laying people off, but which to me is exciting because then that leaves an opportunity for people to start their own, right? But when we think about that retention, tell me, like, when tell us what you do in that. Like, I know that's a byproduct of what you do, but when you talk about e-learning, do you work with small businesses, medium-sized, large, all of the above? Like, give us a little bit of your process, like when you go in and the client has said, yes, we want you to help build whatever, and what you're building.
Yeah, so it can look a couple of different ways. Now, my background has come from larger organizations, but for me, even a small team is about 100 or more employees. Okay. That's usually at the place where they're in growth mode. They recognize they can't just tap on the shoulder to the manager anymore. They're forming, management teams, different departments, so on and so forth. So they recognize we need to really systemize this and have good learning in place so people know how to do their job, what it looks like to go to the next level, how should leaders interact, what does it like to be a leader. And like I said, it comes down to having, like I said, the knowledge in place and the resources and tools to give them to be great for a sustainable running, operating business. So really my process is coming in and you understand the people. Like in learning and development, there's no one size fits all in solutions. There's no one size fits all when it comes to training. So every time I work with a company, be it small team, little team, whatever the case is, I want to understand what are their learning goals? What are some of their unique challenges? Where have they been before? What are some things they tried in the past? What worked well? What didn't? So we can really strategize together what we're trying to do going forward. Some projects I worked on have really been centered around people skills primarily. So like we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, communication strategies, leadership development. And it's looking at who is the target audience. From the frontline employees, how does it look in your level? From the mid-level manager to the executive leader, how do you carry out those values? It's really just building that plan together and saying, this is what it looks like at your level, and your level, and taking that and executing from there.
Yeah. So it sounds like both, for lack of better terms, I don't love these terms, and I never did, even when I was in the L&D world, the like hard skills and the soft skills, like you do it all. So what got you into this? What'd you do before you started this?
Yeah, so I got in the industry honestly out of pure curiosity. Originally I was in digital marketing and sales for a company, and a lot of my team members that would come onto the team, they would have to navigate the system. They went through training, but it just still wasn't sticking. You know, you get onto the sales floor, you're a little nervous. You get these calls. They can be rude, they can be nice, they can be whatever you get on the phone, and it's just a lot to balance and juggle. So I would naturally want to support my team members. I would step in and say, you know what, let me help you navigate this. Let me show you some tips and tricks. Or if they had an issue with sales call, let me hop on the phone, let me help you close this deal. Like, I wanted my people to be great around me. So I did that with my team. I did it with the leaders, like the managers. I held various sessions. And that's just something I did naturally, just as an additive to help support the people around me.
Yeah, because you're a leader, girl.
Well, my coworker at that time, I was getting my bachelor's degree also. His wife worked at my university. She said, you know, Taresa, we're introducing this new program for instructional design technology. There's a lot of parallels in what you're doing. Would you be interested? I said, okay. All right, let me look into it. So I finished my bachelor's, went back for my master's of science in education specifically, completed that degree, and I loved it. It was everything I didn't know I needed. Learning about the latest technologies for learning, adult learning theories, the science behind how we learn, all these different moving pieces to, again, create good education in the workplace. And that's where I start. I went into a major Fortune 500 company that is a well-known innovator. And the team I came in with was a group of pioneers. They knew animation, simulation development, curriculum design, graphic design, every little moving piece. And each and every person that said they would show me how to create and develop in that fashion, I sat with them and I learned and I developed. And our team, we're really like the subject matter experts for learning. So a lot of the internal clients, they might be VPs of call centers, they might be over a retail location, they might be over some of our third-party vendors like a Best Buy or Target. They would come to say, you know what, we need training on X, Y, and Z. And we would sit down, consult, strategize, and develop a project plan and execute from there.
Yeah.
And that's just really where it took off. And yeah, so out of that, to be honest with you, Bleuprint was truly born out of the pandemic. When I looked around and I saw that other organizations had not quite figured it out. They didn't have internal teams. Maybe some weren't big enough. Maybe they just didn't know what to do. A lot of them were doing in-person training, so they hadn't really navigated online yet. And when COVID hit, it was like a standstill. I know people who sat in 8-hour Zoom calls per day, and I'm like, oh my God, the fatigue, like that's just overwhelming. So I started Bleuprint to really be a resource. If we're gonna have training in place, if you want to really onboard people, you want people to even just do well at their jobs and know exactly what they're doing, give them good quality training. So Bleuprint is a resource. Organizations who are doing training. If you say you're versed in whatever prime topic, but you have no idea how to take that online, no idea how to keep it engaged and interactive, all those things, that's where Bleuprint comes in to really support.
Okay. Yeah. And later when we have an offline conversation, I'm going to geek out with you about like measurement of the training and Kirkpatrick and all of those kinds of things, because I kind of miss that world. But I want to go back because one of the things that as you walked into this, like that I want to touch on is the fact that opportunity is everywhere. We just have to be prepared for it, right? And so you were prepared, and I love this, like entrepreneurs are so curious, and I love that, right? Because the curiosity then leads to seeing more opportunities than what, you know, like, because otherwise we get into this narrow thinking and we don't see all of the opportunities, because the opportunity that you took was out there for numerous people, but it landed with you and you're like, I'm going forward. What is it that keeps you pushing forward? Because let's face it, being a business owner is fantastic, but there's also I live by the 80-20 rule. There plus or minus 10. So depending on the day, it's only 10%. Other times it's 20%. That like are things that we don't love to do. right? But we do it because it's part of being a business owner. And when things get a little full, for the lack of a better word, what is it that keeps you moving? Because you have a passion, like it is viscerally like visible in your energy, this passion to serve and to help people learn and help organizations help people grow and develop. I mean, that's an obvious, you didn't even say those words, but it's so obvious in the way that you carry yourself and what you talk about. So what is it that keeps you going when things get tough?
It's a matter of perspective. Like for me, I am the what if person, but I'm always the what if I am, that next Fortune 500 company, or what if I'm that next thought leader, or what if. So for me, it's really being imaginative on what the possibilities could be rather than what they cannot. Entrepreneurship, working, career growth, all those things are hard. Like they're very difficult. And I say that from my own experience. Like I've had just nothing but a fair set of challenges, no's, everything else. But for me, what keeps me going, especially on the tough days, because I have those more than anything, is just that perspective of, what if you are going to be X, Y, Z at this highest level, and then you stop. You could have been one step closer, and what if you stop and then you don't hit it? So my biggest fear is not getting to my full potential, and that's what keeps me going. That fear of saying, what if I had just did one more thing, or one more day, or one more week, or whatever that thing is. That's the perspective I keep on hand with me when I get at my lowest. That's what I try to remind myself of. I try to have affirmations. I try to really just stay in that mindset, keep it possible, control the controllables. I can control me. So what am I going to do next to move myself forward? And that's just what I do. That's just how I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Taresa, what are some challenges that, because you have a partnership, right? No, I thought or maybe it's some family that's working with you.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
my brain is still like pasta, like.
No, you're fine. So I do have 3 family members. This is a family business. And I do have some strategic alliances. So I guess you could say partnership in a sense, because there are some people I brought along who said, Taresa, you know what? Anything you need, let me know. I'm here. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So I was going to the challenges because, like my sister just got laid off from T-Mobile, and she's a fantastic like business manager, ops minded, but also has marketing background. And I'm like, dang, I'd love to hire her, but I know we'd kill each other, right? Like she and I've had this conversation about it. So I'm always intrigued when there's like family members that are working together. Now you're the founder and the owner of it, so that kind of sometimes changes things too. But when you work with family, what kind of challenges have you run into, or have you?
I haven't run into too many challenges. Knock on wood. I think because everyone kind of knows how I am about certain things, but what I really make sure to do, and that's what anyone I work with, I always ask, what are you passionate about, and what do you enjoy doing? Because I know for a fact, anyone who's doing things that they absolutely enjoy will do 110% each and every time. And if there's any task that I know, okay, this person may not be up for the challenge for it, they may not necessarily want to do, I outsource it, find someone else to do it. Just that simple. And that's just how we keep that afloat. So far, so good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Taresa, when you think about like where you're at, if you had to say these are the 3 things, and it could be more than 3 or less, but like these are the 3 big rocks that I've learned from being a business owner, that if someone else is out there thinking about starting a business or is in business, that they could learn from you, what would be 3 things that you would say that you've learned from, starting this company to where you're at today as a leader of your organization and of your life?
Oh, well, number 1, comparison is the thief of joy. You are like no other. You are a complete, unique individual. I had to remind myself of that a couple of times, because you'll talk to people and they just won't understand your vision. You'll want to explain it and get them to understand. Some people just will not get it, and you have to understand it's okay, it's not for them. People will compare you. How is this relevant? If it is or it isn't, the different factor is you. In a lot of cases. So just do not look out outward and to other people and assume things and start comparing yourself and getting yourself down. Well, this person doing this, you do not know what other people are going through. Their journey looks like. You can't paint. You see a picture. It's a still moment in time. Don't compare yourself. It's a waste of your joy. Another big thing is be you. I've felt more empowered being just my authentic self, showing up as I am than I ever have in my life. Just because I'm me, I can be energetic, I'm smiling, I'm happy. You could be telling me like probably the worst news ever, and I'm gonna say, okay, you know what, it wasn't meant to be. That's a part of life. You could say, no, I'm gonna think not right now. You have to keep going, and you have to just find ways to keep it positive, because letting negativity in will only draw in more negativity and weigh you down, and then things just come to a halt.
That's so true. And Taresa, what's interesting to me is I had written down, because I always write down little notes to go back to as we're talking, this idea of the fact that I feel like you know what your true identity is, right? Like we in this country tend to identify ourselves and intertwine ourselves with what we do as part of our true identity, which really isn't, right? Like who we are is the important thing. And then what we do with that is the doing, right? Like the business and those types of things. So when you say, you know, like be you, how did you figure out who you were? Like, because you were pretty solid. Like you have your true identity. You know who you are. Is that just something that came to you and it's just always been?
It's kind of 50-50. So for me, I've really always known myself. I will say I've also feel like there have been people along the way to try to break me down, and try to steal my joy, minimize me, make me feel lesser than. And it really was just a tactic. I had to really sit back and evaluate. And then it takes going out, like for me, talking to other people and really navigating space and really have a conversation and recognize, you know what, I'm not the problem. I've had a lot of people project their insecurities onto me. Yeah. And then try and use that to minimize me. So I feel a certain type of way. And I almost let that happen. I really did. But I had to recognize really being an entrepreneur makes you look in the mirror and really face yourself. And I had to look at myself and say, that is not you. Yeah. That is why you're here. Like, this is what you're meant to do. This is how you want to do it. There's nothing wrong with how you're doing it. Like, you're here because obviously you're shaking something up. You got people feeling a certain type of way, whatever the case is, you have to keep going. So that's just my personal experience, just how I've seen things, gotten feedback from certain people, and it's just what it is. So I've just learned to just unapologetically embrace myself and just go with that. I still have some days where people might say something, look at me a certain way, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm me. Take it or leave it. I can't do nothing else with it.
Yeah. And part of what I love about it is it comes so natural to you, that it's hard to describe, right? Like, yeah. So sorry, I put you on the spot there a little bit with that. But so you were talking about comparison, which I'm such a firm believer that comparison is the thief of joy. And then you were talking about being you and your authentic self. And then what are a couple of other lessons as a business owner, and particularly too as a woman in business, that you would say, here's something that I learned that I want to share?
The power of connections. I think in the back of our minds, we've always known that connections are important, but you don't realize the true value in it until you just start talking to people. And for me, I also learn a lot just from conversing with people. So I've grown to really enjoy networking, just learning about people, their experiences, where they've been, what they do, what they like, what they don't, and then I hear a lot of what people don't say as well. You get to feel the body language, tones, and everything else. So it's really interesting. So what I would say is don't be afraid to network, because I feel like for a long time I was very shy about it, kind of wanted to be like in the shadows, kind of hang out. And here recently, I'll say in the last year, so I'm like, let me just go for it. Let me just go out. Let me just do it. Let me just scare myself. And then it just comes a little more natural, gets a little more comfortable. Because when you do it with a purpose to make genuine connections, find your community, find the people who still will take interest in you, value you, all that stuff has to take place. It's a growing pain, it's a process. But I think that's the biggest thing, recognizing the value in networking and building authentic connections and those relationships and following up and touching base and how are you doing? Like those little things go a major way.
Yeah. And Taresa, you know what I love? Like you just embody authenticity. And so like when you talk about networking, I like to observe a lot too. And to your point, like sometimes I hear things that people aren't saying, the underlying kind of things. And so when I go to networking events, I see some people that like their sole purpose is to network and promote themselves. And then I see other people that are there, like we go to networking things sometimes as businesses, it'll be a business networking. And we all know we're there to like meet each other and see if we can help serve each other. But I see people then come in with curiosity and how much, particularly after COVID, people want to be seen, they want to be heard. And so those people that are curious and ask questions about other people, I find make more of those genuine connections. And then, then you start to share what you do. And then I don't know, it feels a little bit more organic to me.
Okay.
And it feels like what you're talking about is more of that organic. And so if I could just interject, if you're going to a networking, go in with curiosity, not just to promote what you do.
Yes,
Because that's what leads to the genuine connection. And I'm a firm believer that in that too, Taresa. I was talking to my sister and we were talking about connections and, you can turn your resume in and these days, the AI, if you don't have the right word, will kick you out before, where if you had a connection in that business, they'll go search for your resume. So it's about that connection in all aspects, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because for me, I think about this. You will get a lot of no's in this lifetime, whether it's business, work, whatever. You get a lot of no's, but all you need is that one yes from the right person, that right introduction. Like a lot of my major wins have come from an introduction or a mutual connection, something like something in the nature, and it's like it's the next thing.
Yeah.
It's quality over quantity, and I think about put myself in other person's shoes. I've been in that event. I've been in that, that networking call, whatever the case is, and people like 5 minutes in pitching me. I'm like, what do you do? Like we have like, what did you we haven't gotten there yet. Like we haven't even said a proper hello. Like and you're already pitching me. You do this. Oh well, you need this. Oh, you need X, Y, Z. What is this? I'm like, oh my God, hold on. No, this
like back up a little.
Yeah, like I had a call with someone and like I introduced myself. I spent like 5 minutes, and next thing I know, he shared the screen, he started going on a whole pitch. And I'm like, hold on. Yeah. Like this is the first date. Hold on, get to know me.
Oh girl, let's not even talk about dating. I'm in my 50s and dating. It's like they immediately want to get married after 2 dates. It's like, no.
So it's like, to your point, yes, keep it organic. Like we're networking, we know people are looking for something, but they're also looking first and foremost for relationships, you know. So it is, like you said, stay curious and go out there. But yeah, I think those are my thoughts. That's my perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Taresa, how long have you been in business?
So I've been in business collectively a little over 2 years now. Been in the industry about 7. So
yeah. Well, I'm so excited for you and what has happened and what's continuing to happen for you. And for those of you just listening, I'm sure you heard the energy. If you're watching, you can see it in Taresa's face and how she is, but just this like vibration of just joy that you have and authenticity. And I really appreciate that. And I know our listeners do as well. So if someone, I'm going to ask you 2 questions that are really random. If someone were to open up whatever music thing you listen to now, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, whatever, what would be the #1 most listened to song in your playlist?
Oh man, that's probably something ratchet. And I can't think about it. It's something Drake related. So it's probably gonna be Drake album, Her Loss. I'm not really I'm not too happy with this last one. So probably Drake, Her Loss, or I can't remember the other album, but yeah, something Drake. It's probably gonna be something Drake related. Hands down.
Awesome. And then what you could say, this is the best book I've read in this last year, what book would it be?
Now I'm guilty. I've been way off my reading game, my book game. Now I've read several articles.
Yeah,
magazines,
that works.
Yeah, so I was about to say, now I've touched on a couple of Gartner articles about like employee engagement,
Yeah.
Employee retention, just little things like that, just doing research, stuff like that. So boring topics, but all educational type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. Cause it's funny. Some people are always like, oh, I have this great fiction book. And I'm like, I love you. But ever since I've gotten my master's, I have a hard time reading anything other than things that relate to my work and what I do. Occasionally I'll do a beach book, but it doesn't necessarily always happen. So thank you for sharing all of that. And Taresa, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, and find out more about what your company does, because as you talk about connections, as we put this out on LinkedIn and Facebook, all of those other areas, there are people within my network that work for companies that are the size that you work with. And so where would someone go to find out more about you and how to get in touch with you?
Oh yeah, LinkedIn is the place to be. That's my playground. Of course, my name is Taresa Scott. My newsletter's on there. My website is on there. A lot of fun details about me. So absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to say one thing. You were talking about that one person that changes your life. And I don't watch a ton of TV, but I do watch some. And I was watching The Voice, and John Legend was talking about one of the songs that the person was singing and how much it meant to him because a person suggested to him to write a song for his wife. And that's when he wrote All of Me, which is what changed his life.
Yeah.
Right? And so in many ways, right? Because then he got married to Chrissy and all those. And so it made me think of, oh, isn't that interesting how everywhere, right? Like it's just that one connection that sometimes can change us so that we're not continuing to be like the fly that continues to hit the window, but we shift 20% and we go right out the door, right? Like the open door that's right next to it. So yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I so appreciate you and your energy and everything that you're doing. Thank you for being a part of the show.
I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And we'll set up another time outside of the podcast here that we'll connect again. But with that, folks, it's a wrap. Have a fabulous week. If you want to gain more clarity in your life or your business, please reach out to me at www.leadyourlituplife.com. All of those things will be in the show notes. So we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening. The song Ride is co-written and sung by Miss Jackie Wilson and her collaborators Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee. And a huge shout out to them for allowing us to use this perfect song. Everyone have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you next week.